So here we are seated at this dining room table with the Asaju and Dlamini family. There's a knock at the door, and so Emmanuel gets up to go and answer. And when he gets there, there's nobody at the door. He makes his way back to the table and he sits there and he's just looking at everybody, and he's holding Nandi's hand under the table once again because he can see what she's seeing, which is that everything is falling apart. Everything is falling apart, and he doesn't know what to do or say. He doesn't want to disrespect her parents, and he most certainly doesn't want to disrespect his own. And so he's sitting there looking like, what is supposed to happen now? Now, Mamncane can pick up on the vibe. She can pick up on it, and she is feeling mortified for her niece, but most importantly, she's very upset with her sister. She cannot understand and believe that Mrs. Dlamini would come here and behave so badly. She is so upset for her niece. So she tries to break the tension and she says, so Mr. and Mrs. Asaju, how has, and obviously speaking to his brother too, how has Emmanuel's uncle, how has lockdown been in Abuja? How has COVID? What has been the protocol? Are you guys feeling what we're feeling here? And they begin to talk. They're like, no, lockdown has been okay. We are definitely, compared to South Africa, we're still very much living like we did before. The restrictions are not as strict. Obviously, there's certain things being put in place. We have to wear masks and that, but for the most part, we're just living. Some places you go to, some people aren't even wearing masks. So we're living. We're just making do with what we have and moving forward as best we can. And they start discussing, more about what's happening in Abuja and what COVID looks like. Now, Mrs. Dlamini is sitting there and becoming more and more enraged. She's annoyed that now they're having this whole entire conversation that does not include her. But also, she feels once again, nobody is taking her side. Her husband is here enjoying his liquor and not saying anything. And her sister is just not here for her shenanigans. She's not here for the foolery. And so she's getting more and more agitated. Now remember, Mrs. Lieberman is a therapist. She's able to see and read people's body language and demeanor and the energy and the atmosphere. And she can see that Mrs. Dlamini is getting more and more upset. So to break that tension before anything pops off again, she asks about culture. Cultural differences, starts making commentary about the food, asks them about where they're from, how things work back in Nigeria. She starts to ask them about their cultural group and, just tell us more. We want to learn. We want to hear. And now the Asaju family are more than happy. This is where the uncle even steps in and really starts speaking on behalf of the family because they're proud. They're proud of where they're from. They're proud of who they are. They're proud of their culture and their tradition. They speak about where they were raised, which was, back in the village, and how they came to make this beautiful life in Abuja. But everything, including that village life, is very much a part of who they are today and why they are the people they are today and how they've progressed and, managed to progress in life. They are telling them everything they can think to say. They are so happy to share this information, and everybody is just eating it up and listening and enjoying hearing about, the differences and what the Asajus have to say. And of course, this sparks Mamncane, and she says, Emmanuel, Nandi, did you guys find that there was, culture shock when you guys got together? And they both responded yes, and laughed it off. And Emmanuel very quickly said, but you know what? Nandi comes from a very traditional family. She's still got those, values and beliefs, and she's somewhat conservative, and so there wasn't much compromising that needed to take place, but because we were both very clear about our position and role in this relationship, and somehow it just works. We kind of think alike. And Mr. Asaju says, no, no, I have to say, Unandi has been raised very, very well. Just watching her, listening to her, getting to know her. And of course, I still remember the day when my son called home to say, I'm getting married. I've met this woman and I love her. I love her and she is the person for me. This is what this is. And they all start laughing. And he says, I'm very proud of you, Nandi. I'm very proud of even my son for selecting such a suitable bride. And Nandi's feeling good. The conversation is starting to take a bit of a turn and it's starting to look positive and light again. And Mr. Asaju says, Nandi, back at home, we don't believe in divorce. So I hope you understand that you are stuck with our son. And she says, no, Mr. Asaju, he is stuck with me. I also don't believe in divorce. We've had this conversation and we're going to make it work. Mamngani chimes in and she was like, oh, thank goodness. This is music to our ears, I just want to know and hear that this generational struggle is being broken in our family. And her and Nandi start laughing. Now again, Nandi and Mamngani have their own type of relationship. It's this very loving, nurturing, mommy-daughter type of vibe. And because she's not Nandi's biological mother, there's also this comfort and this ease and the security with sharing things, amongst each other. And Nandi really does feel she can confide in her aunt. And so they have that little laugh together. And Mrs. Dlamini reprimands her, tells her that that's not an appropriate comment to make. And Mamngani was like, just calm down. It was, look, we're family. It wasn't meant to offend anybody, but the fact of the matter is we're now all going to be a family and these are things they're going to see. And then she looks at the Asaju family. Look, as I said, we have very strong women in our family. And unfortunately, a lot of women are either not married or their relationships have not lasted. And that's just what that is. And Mrs. Dlamini very quickly chimes in and she says, I've been with my husband for 25 years. I've been with him for 25 years. So what generational struggles are you talking about? That's nonsense. There's no such thing. And Mrs. Asaju chimes in. You've been living with your man for 25 years, but a husband, marriage, now that's a stretch. Come on. You guys haven't slept in the same bed for over 12 years. I don't know what marriage that is. I don't know who you're trying to fool. At this point, Mr. Asaju bangs the table and says, enough. Mrs. Dlamini looks at Mrs. Asaju. She looks at Nandi. She looks back at her and they start going back and forth. Now they're here again. Here. Popping off at the gums, just doing the most, yelling at each other. And Emmanuel's like, what is going on? Please, everybody, try and calm down. What is going on? And Emmanuel's like, Mom, please, stop. Mom Ngani is also saying to her sister, stop it. What are you doing? Just stop all of this. Stop this nonsense. Of course, they're going back and forth. And Mrs. Asaju makes it clear to her husband, no, I will not be quiet. And she says, no, listen to me. I will not have my son influenced by this foolery. I do not want him to be badly influenced. And he's like, Mom, what bad influences? I'm a grown man. What do you mean bad influences? And she's like, you be quiet, Emmanuel. You be quiet. I've sat here and I've listened to you just talk and say whatever you feel like saying, and it's enough. You be quiet. You need to trust me. I'm your mother, and I know how this works. When a man meets a woman, he thinks he's in love with her, he starts sleeping with her, he's this, he's that, he's this. He starts to say whatever he believes, whatever he's influenced by her. I'm your mother, I know these things. And Emmanuel is shaking his head. Mrs. Asaju says, I'm sorry, but he is being badly influenced. He is being badly influenced and it needs to be said. What type of a mother would I be if I didn't say this? And Nandi says, Mrs. Asaju, with all due respect, your son is not being influenced by me. If anything, I'm influenced by him, and I'm proud to say that. He is the man in this relationship and he leads us. We go to church together. We, go for therapy together. We sit and speak with the pastor together. We do all of these things together. Emmanuel is not doing anything he does not want to do. And for the most part, we're doing what he has indicated or decided is best for us to do. So I'm not influencing your son. And she's like, listen to me, Nandi. I know my son. You're not going to tell me what he is and is not influenced by. I raised this boy. I raised him. In all the years I've known Emmanuel, he's never sat here in our faces and spoken about how he will not be coming home anytime soon. He's got to work in South Africa for years, this, that, and the other. It's not what I want to hear. This is not what it is. So when I say my son is being influenced, I mean my son is being influenced, and that's what that is. And she keeps quiet. At this point, she doesn't know what to say. She's not going to sit here and further argue with her husband or her husband to be's mother, her mother-in-law. She's just not about to do it. So she's quiet and she lifts her shoulders like, I don't know what to say at this point. I really don't know what to say. Next thing, there's a knock at the door again. And Nandi's all but too glad to get up and go and answer the door. So she makes her way to the door, she checks the peephole, and she sees who it is, and she opens the door. And she says, babe, it's not a good time at the moment. Right now, we're just trying to, and the person on the other end is not finna hear it. Being the charismatic, extrovert, very, out there personality is like, bitch, come on, get out the way. Where's our husband? Where is he? And the person is screaming, Emmanuel. And who is it other than their friend / neighbor who just happens to be beautiful, gay, all the way out there, and a beauty blogger. He is channeling that James Charles yummy, beautiful, gorgeous look. And he rocks up there with a full beat of makeup. He is unapologetic about who he is, what he's about. Listen, make way. Comes through and he sees the family sitting there and he says, oh my gosh, the family's in town. At this point, Mrs. Dlamini is like, shoo, 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 shoo. She looks at her husband like, are you seeing this? Mrs. and Mr. Asaju are like, they cannot believe what they are seeing. Mrs. Asaju makes a point to look back at her husband like, can you see this? Can you see this? And you're trying to convince me that our son is not influenced. When would this be happening in Nigeria? When would this be happening back at home? When? Emmanuel doesn't know what to say at this point. He does not know what to say. He knows what his parents are thinking, and he's just like, let's just take it how it is. Now, he's well raised. He's not going to kick Chris out. Chris is their neighbor. He's not going to kick Chris out. And so, of course, he says to Chris, take a seat. Get yourself a plate of food. What's up? And Chris is like, oh my goodness, the parental's in town, Mr. and Mrs. Asaju, Mr. and Mr. Dlamini, so nice to meet you. And of course, Mrs. Asaju. And you are? And he says, oh, my name is Chris. I'm this and this and this and this. I'm friends with Emmanuel and Nandi. I'm their neighbor, this, that, and the other. And Mrs. Asaju says, and how do you know my son Emmanuel? And he says, well, actually, I met him through Nandi. And Mrs. Asaju looks back at her husband like, can you see? Can you see? And she looks at Emmanuel like, at this point, Emmanuel says, Mom, no. We moved into this apartment. Nandi was struggling with groceries downstairs. Chris happened to be there. He offered to help her with the groceries. They came into the house. Nandi offered him some drinks. They got to talking, and I came home and I met them. So we met pretty much the same day. And Mrs. Asaju was like, nope, not trying to hear it. She's still looking at her son like, this is some foolery. This is some foolery. How dare you look at me in my face and try and convince me that you're not being badly influenced and that you have not changed? Look at all of this. So they sit there at the table having conversations. They're trying to keep it cute and together because now they have this unexpected guest. But of course, Mrs. Asaju cannot change the look on her face, and neither can Mrs. Dlamini. They're both just not feeling this. They're not feeling what has been happening before Chris arrived, and they're not feeling Chris. They cannot believe it. These are conservatives, guys. These are traditional African parents. They are not here for it. They cannot believe it. They're looking at their husbands like, tell me you're not, you can see all of this. This is a mess. So they carry on eating, talking, allowing the vibe to continue. Nandi and Emmanuel kind of looking at each other. They don't know what to say. They allow the whole vibe to continue to go. Mamncane is trying her best to keep the conversation going. Mrs. Lieberman knows and feels what's going on. She's sensed the shift in energy since Chris has come in. The whole thing is a mess. And so this dinner that was supposed to be peaceful and calm is now turning into, this lunch that was supposed to be peaceful and calm is now turning into a dinner. And they're sitting there and they're listening to this conversation back and forth, then back and forth, then back and forth. And now Chris is talking. Chris has no, he's just not feeling the awkwardness. Well, if he is, he's just not playing into it. He's not feeding it into it. He's about positivity and light and love. And he's here to bring it to this, what was supposed to be lunch, now turning into a dinner. And so he makes a comment and he says, so Mrs. and Mr. Asaju, how is life back in Nigeria? I've been wanting to come and visit for a long time. So Mr. Asaju says, no, life is good in Nigeria. Have you ever been there? And he says, no, I haven't, but I would love, love, love to come. I say to Emmanuel all the time, if he and his amazing behavior, his manners, everything, just the fact that he's such a gentleman, if that's anything to go by, I told him I have to come to Nigeria and I have to meet my personal person. And they're like, okay. And it's like, yeah, no, I just feel like I could possibly, find me, somebody to marry. That's just what that is. And Mr. Asaju looks at his wife, and the wife is looking at Emmanuel. Now, you better get this, you better get it. And, oh, please. Mrs. Dlamini sees this as her opportunity to come in, to say what she wants to say, to do the most, and be here again, here. So she says, well, you might just be in luck, Chris. Emmanuel has twin brothers, so, you never know. Mrs. Asaju looks at Mrs. Dlamini. Now, what's so awkward about this comment is Mr. Asaju does have twin boys. Twin boys he fathered outside of his marriage. Yes, he had a mistress, he got her knocked up, and she gave birth to twin boys. And now that's a family secret, if you will. That's something that's not really being spoken about. And so Mr. Asaju wipes his mouth. He gets up in a very dignified manner. He goes to the kitchen and he says to Emmanuel, come, let's go to the kitchen. Go to the kitchen, and he says, Emmanuel, I think it's time for your mother and I and uncle to leave. This is getting way out of control, and I don't know what to say anymore. And he says, Dad, you guys can't go. You cannot go. We need this to happen. And he says, what do you mean? And he says, look, Nandi and I have been seeing our pastor. We told you guys about this, and our pastor made it clear that if our relationship is going to work, we're going to have to be honest, and we're going to have to air these secrets, put them on the table, because these secrets have the ability to tear us apart, to tear the family apart. And so as uncomfortable as this is, and I'm sorry that things are coming out this way, I need you guys to stay. I need you to stay. You cannot walk away. If you stay, it's also going to make Nandi feel like you're walking away from what's happening here. And the dad says, like, okay, son, I hear you, but this is too much. And he says, I know, but that's why Mrs. Lieberman is here. She's not just here to enjoy the food and to get to meet you and mom and Nandi's parents. She's here to mediate. And Mr. Asad was like, but she's not even saying much. What do you mean? And he's like, no, she's not going to say much while the secrets are coming out. But she's here to help us work through them after the fact. So I need you guys to stay. I need you to make sure mom doesn't get up and leave. And he agrees. And Mr. Asad says, but son, when do you plan to tell your secret? Now back at the table, there's this awkward vibe, very awkward vibe. Mrs. Dlamini is looking Mrs. Asaju up and down, and Mrs. Asaju is staring Mrs. Dlamini down like, you piece of work. If I could take you outside to do some things, I would do it. I would beat you to the ground. And Mrs. Dlamini is not apologetic about what she said. She's just here. At this point, Mamncane has had it. All of this nonsense, this trashy behavior, all of it, not doing it. It's nonsense. It's beneath her. She's watching her niece in pain, in discomfort, in confusion. She doesn't like any of what is going on, and so she decides, I'm walking away. I'm leaving. And she says, Nandi, I'm so sorry, my child, but I'm leaving. I do not want to be a part of this. I do not want to be a part of this very destructive conversation. I don't think it's fair to you and Emmanuel, and I don't want to be a part of it. I want you to know that I support the both of you. I love you both together. To the Asaju family, I'm sorry all of this has happened. To the sister, I'm leaving. I cannot stay here and support any of this. And she gets up and goes. Now, Chris sees this as an opportunity to get up and leave too. He's like, okay, this is clearly not a good vibe. I'm going to go because I do not want to be a part of this. And so he's like, goodbye to everybody. He is leaving, and he gets up and he walks Mamncane out. Emmanuel and his mother and his father come back to the table, and they have a seat. And Emmanuel sits there. He looks at Nandi, who at this point isn't even trying to eat. She is visibly horrified, hurt, and very angry. Very angry. Mr. Asaju says to his wife, you need to calm down. Settle down. And he says to Mrs. Dlamini, please, I ask you to calm down for our children's sake. Nope, Mrs. Asaju needs to say something. And she's to her husband, how dare you? How dare you stand in judgment of me and my family? You who claims to be married, barely. You don't even have a husband. Look at this man. Your roommate, this one you've been living with for 25 years. This one who sleeps in a different bed. He's a lush. How many beers has he had since we've been here? He can barely hold his head up. Look at him. He doesn't support you. It's very clear by your body language, the way he's been looking at you. He no longer loves you. You sit in judgment of my family. You cannot even control yours. You cannot even control your husband. You cannot even get him to get it together for one day. He's here drinking. Ma'am, you couldn't even control your daughter. She had a whole child out of wedlock. And you speak about family and you try and judge mine. How dare you? Who do you think you are? At this point, Emmanuel steps in and he shouts, enough, enough. Enough. And the mother is like, Emmanuel, and he says, Mom, enough. Nandi and I have sat here and we have watched you guys disrespect this home. We've watched you disrespect each other. We've watched you disrespect our future marriage. This is a mess. We didn't bring you here to fight and to do this. This is not what this lunch was about. Okay, fine. We have family secrets. Yes, Nandi has a kid out of wedlock. We didn't tell you because we knew you were going to react this way. She wasn't trying to hide it from anybody. I told her she needed to hide it from you because this is the way you behave. Fine, yes. Many years ago, before you had us, you dated Uncle. You dated him. Fine, that's out. It's on the table. Mrs. Dlamini and Mr. Dlamini have problems in their marriage. Dad had children that he had no business having. Fine, all of that. How much more do you guys need to insult each other? What else do you want for to come out to continue to insult each other? We're about to be a family, and this is how you people want to behave. This is unacceptable. Every family has its secrets. Nobody is perfect. And just so that we're being clear and transparent, because this is clearly going awry, we brought Mrs. Lieberman here today so that she could sit here and she could mediate, because we both predicted that our families could not be trusted to deal with this in a respectful manner. And she says, Emmanuel, that is enough. I am still your mother. You will not talk to me like that. You will respect. And he says, Mom, no, it's enough. She says, that's fine. That's it. Your father and I are leaving. She tells her husband, get up, let's go. We're leaving. And he says, and go where, Mom? It's curfew. You can't go even if you want to. You guys are stuck here until the morning. And I suggest that instead of allowing this madness to continue, we start to figure it out. Because just to be clear, Unandi and I are getting married, whether you people like it or not. We are getting married. I'm going to pay this lobola. Everything has been finalized. We are getting married. We're going to have a beautiful wedding. And that's that. And you are more than welcome to come. But if you don't want to be there, and if you cannot behave yourselves, don't come. But you're not going to ruin this for us. We saw a pastor who told us that in order for our marriage to work, we had to come together as a family and open these secrets. We had to put them on the table so that there was no ammunition and nothing that could be used, even spiritually, to destroy us as a family. And that's what we've done. Mrs. Lieberman is here to mediate and to make sure things go properly and to talk us through this. And truth be told, that's the only reason why we're doing this. If it wasn't for what the pastor said, this wouldn't even be happening. This wouldn't have been happening. Mrs. Asaju at this point is dead quiet. She cannot believe her son is talking to her this way. She cannot believe what is coming out of his mouth. And Mr. Asaju is looking proud of his son and looking at the wife like, I don't know how many times you need to be told to reel it in. Look at what you're doing to our son. Look at how you are upsetting our son. At this point, Mrs. Dlamini and Mrs. Asaju start coming down. They start coming down. Calming down, up off their high horses. Because it's very clear that they have both equally upset this family. Their husbands are not down for what they've done. Their children are mortified. Unandi is visibly upset and angry. Mamncane has left. That's how far this foolery has gone. She has left. So they know it's bad. So Mrs. Lieberman takes over the conversation and she starts talking. The following morning, the sun rises, and just by the look on their faces, everybody is emotionally exhausted. Mrs. Asaju has tears, her face is red, it's puffy. It's very clear that she's been crying. Mrs. Dlamini too, eyes red, very puffy. Mr. Dlamini long passed out. He's been asleep. Mr. Asaju and his brother have been keeping everything together. Mrs. Lieberman stands up. She says, everything is going to be okay. I know everything is going to be okay. This family were meant to come together. Your children love each other. This marriage is going to work. Well done. Well done on all the good work. If any of you want to see me or further talk to me, take my contact information, call me at any time. We could schedule a meeting. I'm here. They all stand up. Mr. Asaju and his brother thank Mrs. Lieberman. She hugs everybody, hugs Nandi. She hugs Emmanuel. Unandi walks her out. She leaves. She comes back and Mrs. Asaju is holding her son. She's crying. She's apologizing to him. He's holding her and he's telling her how much he loves her and how much he still wants her to come to the wedding. And she tells him, of course, I'll be there. Now, at this point, let's reverse a little. Mr. Asaju, when Mrs. Lieberman, their therapist, was giving her little speech, text Emmanuel to say, son, this is a good time for you to come out with your secret. Put it on the table. Look at this progress we've made. Just put it out on the table. Emmanuel looks at his phone. He looks at his father, and he carries on looking at Mrs. Lieberman. Fast forward, she's left. And so now he's holding his mother. Unandi is hugging her mother. She's woken her dad up to say, it's time for you guys to go. And he's just like, oh, is everything done? Yes, Dad. Yeah, you're going home now. She hugs her father. Emmanuel hugs his uncle and then hugs his father. And his father hugs him and holds him tight and whispers in Emmanuel's ear, son, when do you plan to tell Nandi the secret? And he whispers in his father's ear, I plan to be buried with them. He has no intention of telling Nandi a damn thing. He lets his dad know, my kids will bury me with my secrets. I hope that's clear. And he looks at his dad and his dad looks at him. And that's it. How y'all doing? Just almost fell over. Hey guys, how you doing? I hope you guys are having an amazing time in the champagne room. I'm not going to waste any more of your time. If you enjoyed this video, if you want to see more champagne videos, if you want to see champagne short stories turn to actual short films, read the information I drop in the description box, in the description box below, and see how you can be a part of that. Have a beautiful day.